Welcome to the Zachrilege cast, the one semi-true podcast that brings the best and brightest of the atheist movement to your eye and ear balls. Let me take one moment to thank last week's guest, Stephanie Jones. She will be utility infielder behind this Sunday's Atheists on Air, one of my favorites, so give that a shot, either live or in podcast form. So before introducing today's guest, I wanted to give some kudos to the atheist movement for being especially awesome the past few weeks. I know I'm kissing ass to my focus group, way to get to a rousing start. I'm referring to the multi-podcast attempt to raise money for the Statesboro Atheists and Secular Humanists, who are raising money for the local food bank. I'll include a link in the show notes, and in case that's too complicated, type the word Statesboro Atheist into your Facebook search window and you'll find it. So as much as cognitive dissonance likes to make fun of states in the South, they are donating north of $2,000 to the cause. And I've also seen support for Georgia-based shows, Scathing Atheist and No Religion Acquired. So let's get to today's show. Today I bring on Godless Mom, hereafter referred to as Mrs. Mom. She's a Canadian blogger, vlogger, and a hell of a person. Just retweeting her post to be a part-time job. She paints as well. I first heard of her during the Free Mubarak campaign, which I'll have her tell us all about. So welcome to the show, Mrs. Mom. And how long have you been a communist?
A communist? Is that because of Shay?
Yeah, I saw Shay and I saw your video about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not a communist. I just, I love history. My parents brought that back from Cuba for me, so.
It's pretty cool. So when are oh, that's right. You're in Canada, so you guys can go wherever you want, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we've all been to, well, I haven't been to Cuba yet, but I plan to visit one day.
Mm-hmm. Sounds lovely. So does your family have any particular kind of religious background for you, like growing up?
No, I really didn't even know what it was until, I think I recently posted about this, that I post so much that I forget when, but I recently posted about like a bunch of different times that I encountered church and religion as a child, and it was just very strange to me. It was like extremely weird to me. My parents were not religious at all. We didn't talk about God, nothing like that. I didn't even really realize until I was like 7 or 8 that, people believed in this stuff. And even then I didn't realize how rampant it was. So, no, we don't really have much of a religious background. The rest of my family is Catholic, but they are not really practicing. They'll do the baptisms and have church weddings and stuff like that, but that's about it.
So is it kind of in Canada, since it's not nuts like America, that people like have a religion, but it's not such entwined in the daily life and the, I guess, politics as it is here?
Yeah, it depends on where you go. There are definite areas in Canada, such as the town that I live in right now. I grew up in the suburbs of Vancouver, where, I mean, meeting a Christian is just as common as meeting a Buddhist or, a Sikh or something like that. Nobody talks about their religion there. They keep it to themselves. Most people are culturally religious, and that's, about the extent to which it goes. But moving here, it's a little bit different. The town that I live in is 12,000 people, and I think there's like 13 churches and 4 schools. So
Okay.
there's just, everything is a little bit different, like there was one time we went to the thrift store in town, and I took my stepdaughter to go buy some clothes, and the lady was just gushing over her and saying how she was a gift from God and an angel sent down from heaven and all this stuff. And I was just like, I've never heard this stuff before in my life. Like you wouldn't hear that in Vancouver, and it's just very different here. So I don't openly say that I'm an atheist here. I just say that I'm not religious.
Well, it's close enough. I mean, maybe I think they do that like in the US. It's always this north and south thing, but I think it's a kind of a city versus rural. Like if you're in a rural area, you're probably going to have a lot more influenced by the church, but maybe that's just
Yeah.
a theory.
Yeah.
So how
Well,
did
this is a
you?
farm town, so
Okay,
yeah, I think it's true. I think it's the rural areas.
how did you obtain your superpowers to become Godless Mom?
Well, it kind of happened after moving here because I just like back in Vancouver, it was just never a big deal, right? It just I never nobody's ever given me a hard time here yet. Like I make it sound like people have given me a hard time here. They haven't. It just feels different. Like there's just a different vibe here. I don't feel comfortable saying out loud, certain things. And so I would if I didn't have my son too. If I had, because I have my son, I have to worry about like the families of his friends and stuff like that, his teachers. So I just kind of keep my mouth shut here, and I don't like keeping my mouth shut. And so I
Hmm.
needed an outlet. And that's more or less, I started my blog about a month after I moved here because it was just like, no, I got to get the stuff out of my head, like, so that's basically why. I would say it had been building up as well over the previous years because I'm always on Reddit, and Reddit is very, very vocal about atheism, and they're always talking about it. There's always memes being posted about Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and all that stuff, and I just found that like as these things were showing up on my front page of Reddit, I had stuff to say about it, so I just kind of pulled the trigger after I moved here and started the blog.
Yeah, I had, so how long has it been then?
Let's see, I started in March of 2014, so just over a year.
So you're still relatively new to the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. I love it though. I mean, like the community has been so supportive. I know some people don't like calling it the community, but what else are you going to call it? They've been so supportive, and I've just gotten so much positive feedback, and like I've had here and there tiny pockets of people who don't like what I say, but they're always really polite about their criticism, and I love listening to that too. I love hearing ways that I can do things better because I mean it's a feed off of that feedback. But most of the negative stuff just comes from the religious community, so which I really don't care about.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on the support of the community, and I think you would can think that, oh, we're skeptic. Well, atheist doesn't always mean skeptic. That people will give you criticism and actually can help you instead of just an all caps rant,
Yeah.
which you will get as well in time. So, how did you get involved in this Free Mubarak campaign?
Well, Mubarak, he emailed me. Well, he private messaged me on Twitter, and he said that he had something really important that he needed help with, and I had never talked to him before, so
And just
I wasn't
for,
sure what it was.
sorry to interrupt, but just for everybody, so who, because the name, most people I think have heard it in the community, but just a little
Mm.
detail of who Mubarak is, just because that name always sounds so close to the Egyptian dictator, and you're like, wait a second, why are you freeing him?
Yeah, no, he is an ex-Muslim in Nigeria and very active on Twitter, and he had been for a lot longer than I had ever been Godless Mom. So, um, he talked to a lot of the people that I knew on Twitter and who I had grown to, trust more as about as much as you can trust a stranger on the internet, right? So he DM'd me, and he said that he had something something important had happened that he needed to share. So I gave him my email address, and he told me that he had come out a few months earlier as an atheist to his Muslim family in Nigeria, and he lived in the north of Nigeria, which is Boko Haram territory and under Sharia law. And he said that his father had drugged him and beat him and taken him to a mental hospital. And I thought about it for a while. He said, whatever you can do, if you could help me in some way. He was communicating through his mother's cell phone, which he had borrowed. And he said, any which way you can help me would be great. And so I thought about it for a while because Nigeria, the first thing you think of is scams, right? And I thought about it for a while and I thought, you know what, if this turns out to be a scam, then I'm okay with looking like an idiot. But if I don't do something about this and it isn't a scam, then I look like an asshole, Like, I'd rather look like an idiot than someone who doesn't give a shit about human life. So, through our contacts at, we basically did a huge Twitter campaign. Me and Atheist Andy, I think you've seen him probably on Twitter a little bit. Nancy Drew, who was recently on your show, and Tiana and Paul from Coronify Me helped. We did this huge Twitter campaign. We got the attention of lots of people like Richard Dawkins and stuff like that. And through that, we connected with the International Humanists and Ethical Union, and they helped us connect with people on the ground in Nigeria to confirm the story. And we did actually end up confirming the story. The hard part was, though, that we had to keep quiet who had confirmed the story because their life was in danger as well. So a lot of people didn't believe us, and we spent a lot of time arguing with people over it, but turned out to be true, and we got it all over, the BBC, ABC, the Associated Press, all that stuff. Actually, Bami, who is one of the people who helped us work on this campaign and is also in Nigeria, did an interview on BBC Radio. And eventually his father, the hospital that he was in went on strike. And his father decided that it wasn't worth it to move him to a different hospital. And he got out. And, it's in no small part due to the pressure we put on him. He felt the pressure. He knew what was going on. And, the sad thing is, though, is that Mubarak's still in Nigeria. He's still struggling. He's still in hiding. He has no money. You can't get a job there if you're an out and open atheist. And, it's too late for him to pretend. So he's still struggling quite a bit. He's trying very hard to get to North America.
Was there a push to get him to, I think it was to Canada, or just out of the country, basically?
Yeah, well, he's a really smart guy. He's really highly educated. He was supposed to, before he came out as an atheist, he was supposed to be going to a prestigious school in London, and his father pulled the tuition on that, and after he came out as an atheist, which, a lot of people can argue was a mistake on Mubarak's part, but I believe that he should be allowed to be whoever he wants. And then after the campaign, he did a whole bunch of applying for schools and stuff like that in the US. And I think it was Clark University in Massachusetts accepted him. And the only stumbling block was paying his tuition and getting him to the US. And we tried to raise those funds on, I think it was Indiegogo, and we failed. We only raised about $1,500, I think, which helped him live for a little while in Nigeria. But I guess Clark has extended their acceptance. And so if he can still find his way there and find funding to pay for the tuition, then he can still go. But I mean, when you're looking for 40 grand, that's a tall order.
Yeah, that is a lot of money. I didn't think it was going to be cheap to get. I mean, just a plane ticket to America would not be cheap. Probably like a grand or something, maybe more. And colleges there, they're not cheap. But I'm still impressed by the reach of the whole campaign, and it had to have been cool to really be able to reach out and help someone, as opposed to just doing the blogs and the videos, like actually having an impact on someone's life.
Yeah. It was really, really rewarding, and But at the same time, it was really stressful because so many people, like, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. There are people out there who think that it's just the dumbest thing you could possibly be doing, and they'll tell you, and they will not stop telling you.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like every
Hello again.
day you're getting emails and tweets and stuff like that, and it's just like, and it's atheists too. It's not just the religious community, and especially because a lot of people take pride in the fact that they call themselves a skeptic, that they wanted to appear skeptical of the whole Nigeria side of things because it could have been a scam. And so they just refused, absolutely refused to hear us or help us in any way, even though sometimes we were just asking for a retweet and that was it. It wasn't like we were asking for anybody to give any money until, his campaign to raise his tuition. But yeah, it was very stressful, but it was rewarding at the same time.
Well, I'm glad you had that good experience. So you're still in touch then, whenever you can be with him?
Yeah, yeah, I talked to Mubarak, and it's really hard to talk to him sometimes just because you feel really helpless, right? Like he's in hiding, like he can't really live his life. He's a chemical engineer, like he's a genius. He's brilliant. He's been contacted by newspapers before and press outlets before to give his expert opinion on, issues that relate to his field and stuff like that. Like this, he's a highly respected person, highly educated person. He speaks beautiful English, and he's basically in hiding, living off of what people can help him out with, and it's really upsetting.
And is it shocking to hear a real life example of someone just being totally discarded by their family because of religion?
Um, well, of course, it's always shocking, but I've seen it happen before. I had a friend in high school who came from a Jehovah's Witnesses family and was caught smoking, and that was it. He was excommunicated, tossed out of his house. Last I saw him, he was hooked on heroin, living in the streets. So, um, I've seen it before, and I mean, if he had told me beforehand, before he came out as an atheist, that he was going to do that in the north of Nigeria, near Boko Haram, where his father actually had ties to Boko Haram, I
Mm.
would have said, you are going to suffer. Like, I support your right to do this, but there will be suffering. And so, in that respect, it wasn't really all that surprising. It was just really saddening and depressing, to be honest. Like, I can't believe that stuff happens in 2015. It's insane.
Yeah, this is one thing that's easy to say, but when you get real life examples to go, oh, the atheists are treated poorly in this country or they're poorly treated in Canada, it's like, oh, it's different than in other countries where people can be and are killed for it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's true.
it shows what seems to happen when a religion takes control of a country. Then humanity kind of becomes secondary because it's always religion first, then people, and if that's your order of operations, then you can do some really bad things and say that's okay because that's what this really old book that I'm not quite sure what it really says tells me.
Yeah.
Painful.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody really understands what it says.
I mean, I don't know. I chatted some with Paul, but the Quran, its history of how it came to be and how close they have it to whatever the original is supposed to be, as like the Bible. Whether that's as much of an issue, but it's still like it's still a book, people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a book. Not worth ruining your family over. I can't imagine being in that state of mind where anything would be more important than your son. Like, I can't wrap my mind around that. There's nothing that could ever make me jeopardize him in any way. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, that is very true. I'll take a slight break here to do my first live read of the show. So if you want to support this show, the Zachrilege Cast, you can go to iTunes and leave me a 5-star rating like RFS999, who is now a friend with benefits of the show. Find it on iTunes, Stitcher, or watch my shiny forehead on YouTube. Also, if you want to chat with me, find the Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook or reach out to me via email at zacrilegecast@gmail.com. So now, back to the show. Hi, Mrs. Mom. Or Courtney, but for some reason I like that. So now I will ask you questions that you've answered in blog or YouTube form. So what are some of your pet peeves of being an atheist?
I gotta say, I think that my biggest pet peeve being an atheist is having people insist to me that they know exactly what I believe and exactly what an atheist is and have it all wrong, and they will not listen to you when you say what an atheist is. And a lot of people are doing that just to get your goat. A lot of people are just trolling, right? But there are people out there that genuinely think that that's what an atheist, that this is what an atheist is, and no matter what you tell them, they won't hear it. And that's my biggest issue being an atheist right now. And I think that another one of my big pet peeves, I think they've changed since, I can't remember what I said in that video, but I think they've changed since then. Another one of my big pet peeves is people who don't understand the difference between making an argument and actually supplying evidence for something. They'll say, well, I have this buddy who saw this thing and so that proves it. Well, no, that doesn't prove anything. That's just an argument. That's just, hearsay or whatever. So that drives me crazy. It's actually more saddening than anything, because it's an indication of how education has failed so many people.
Yeah, was it on your Twitter? I saw it this morning. Someone was doing that, arguing about God, and it was like, here's this one story of an ISIS person who had a dream about Jesus and decided to switch. And it's like, that means I'm right. You're like, yeah. Are you sure this story happened, first of all? Because usually if people have near-death experiences, they experience the religion they believe in. Usually if people see things, it's related to what they already believe. That's why people who are bigots can, hide behind religion, because that follows their beliefs. But yeah, the story is like, I had this one experience. I mean, I had an argument like that when I was early on trying to chat with people, and it was just like, I met this healer who I had this burn and he fixed it. And it was like, well, where is this person still around? Because this would be really helpful for the medical industry if this is actually something a person could do, or they just make you feel like you're not as hurt as badly as you thought. I mean, there's so many questions and there are never any answers. And it's never even close to scientific. But then again, that side never is scientific.
No.
Because if they had a process where they had to show their work, it would never be the same twice.
No.
It's like supernatural means there are no rules. Well, there should be rules. It just might be different rules, but no. Let's see, I just jumped in the middle of all your pet peeves.
Well, the thing is, though, is that it's like, I have a problem with the word supernatural, because if you get to a point where you can understand something that has previously been described as supernatural, doesn't it then become natural? Like,
pretty much, yeah.
I mean, anything that occurs is natural. It's naturally occurring, right? Like, I don't understand that word. I can't wrap my mind around that one. But the other thing about the whole evidence thing is my mom is like that. My mom is, it's awful. My mom, I argue with her so much, but she's a natural remedies, alternative healing guru. She even has a blog, and I'm not going to give you the link to it. But she constantly is telling me and trying to give my son natural remedies that are, if it's harmless, I don't say anything, because you got to pick your fights, right? If it's just like, put a little apple cider vinegar in his water, I don't care, as long as he doesn't mind. But there are other things like my aunt was recently diagnosed with cancer, which sucks, but she's she's going on and on and on about, all these alternative cures to cancer and why she shouldn't be taking chemo and all this stuff. And that's dangerous, like that's my aunt's one chance could be chemo, And so I'm constantly arguing with her and I'm constantly trying to explain to her how to determine a good source of information and how to determine whether or not something is actually backed up by evidence. And I actually wrote a very popular post. I think it was 8 signs you're scientifically illiterate. Recently, it was a few weeks ago, and I wrote that with my mom in mind. And I made her read it, and it's just over her head. It's just in one ear and out in the other, and it drives me crazy. But I think that it's just the complete inability to even want to hear what you're saying with these people, and that drives me nuts. It drives me absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I think people can see these things as harmless. Like if you're taking a homeopathic remedy, which actually has no medicine whatsoever, if you just have like a minor cold, it's like, all right, what's the big deal? Your body's probably, you're going to heal naturally. Yeah, but we're talking about cancer. We're talking about their actual demonstrated ways to make somebody better and to attack a disease like that. It's just crazy. And then people can come up with, oh, I had this one friend who skipped chemo and, talked to the chakras or whatever, and they got better. And they probably would have got better anyway. And this, how does this one example, like, this is what, sometimes gets me when people argue about like evolution.
Oh, I have a visitor. Hold on.
Oh, is that the pet?
Yeah, it's a basset hound.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, my usual pet visitor is not feeling so good, so he won't be in today.
Aw.
But it's people that want to see like every single quote unquote transitional fossil ever for evolution, but they will believe what's in the Bible, which is basically based on what somebody said about what somebody said about what somebody said 30 years after whatever may have happened. So
Yeah.
it seems like people are selectively skeptic, or they're just, I'm shutting my brain off now. I'm not going to listen. And then here, I'll listen.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand it. I can't, like, there's so much joy in figuring out new things and learning new things, and they're basically choosing to not experience that joy, I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Well, I guess you get the answers to everything, even though you really don't.
Yeah.
Like a broad thing, and you're like, oh, I feel better because now I know what's going to happen when I die, as opposed to going, well, I really don't know, and neither do you. That's the common thing. So here's another one. So why do you only pick on Christians and not Muslims?
Well, I pick on both. I just I pick on what's around me. Like I pick apart what's around me more often, and there's not a whole lot of Muslims around me or Islam around me. There was when I lived in Vancouver, in the area of Vancouver. I lived in near Surrey, which has a, comparatively speaking to the rest of Canada, has a fairly large Muslim population. And I met quite a few Muslims there, and they're great people. Lots of them are great people, but they never really talked about their religion to me. So I'm usually addressing things that are imposing themselves some way in my life, like things that are stopping people from getting married, or arguments against contraception or abortion, stuff like that. These are things that concern me, because I live in Canada, where these are issues that are important to people like me. And, there's not a whole lot of Islam or Muslims around me. If there were, I would be quite a lot more vocal about it. But that's not to say that I'm not. I mean, I have posted quite a few blogs about, what I think about Islam and stuff like that, and being critical of it.
I feel like that comes off a lot, that He's like, why are you picking on our religion all the time? Why don't you pick on the other religion? And like,
Yeah.
no,
Oh yeah, I get the exact same thing from Muslims. Like they're like,
you
why do you only pick on Muslims? Why don't you pick on Christianity? I'm like, are you paying attention? Like
you usually only see what you want to see, or you only get to see a certain percentage of someone's timeline. Usually, if you're talking about like Twitter, and you're probably something's going to jump at you if it affects you personally. So you're like, oh no, I see. If you only happen to see when you're talking about Islam, then yeah, you're going to think somebody focuses exclusively on that. But I know you like to be equal opportunity, but it does depend on how it affects you. Like the state of North Carolina just overrode a veto which allowed people to use their strongly held religious beliefs to not let same-sex people get married because basically it's legal now, and it's the exact same argument they used in 1976 against interracial marriage. And I'm thinking, so what's next that you're going to use this argument for 20 years from now and think it's like ironclad? And
it's scary right now, I think. Like I think it's because it's like there's so many more people leaving religion and questioning what they believe and having doubts and stuff like that. And I think it's mostly because of the internet. Um, but I think that, because of the dwindling numbers, at least in the Western world or in North America, of religion, that religious people are becoming panicked. They're becoming extra defensive. And so that's why these really crazy things are coming out. And I always call it religion's death rattle or the death throes or whatever, because it's like, they're always going to fight the hardest just before the end, right? And I think that it's a good sign, but it's also scary because what else are they going to do? Like what's next? I can't even think of what they could possibly do next, but they're just some of the things that have come out lately, like Indiana, the what was that called? The restoration.
yeah, they're trying to pass a similar law in this state. And it's only because I'm in Georgia, it's only been held up because there was one Jewish representative who just wanted to say, hey, by the way, you should probably say out loud that you're just discriminating. And they're like, no, we don't want to say that we're discriminating. No. So it's been held up, but I have a feeling that's going to come through this. You already have extra rights in society if you're, if you're like white Christian. So we're going to make that actually in the law too, which is just okay. And the claims that society is going downhill because it's becoming less religious. I was like, when religious usually run things, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, but it's also that, society is not going downhill. I mean, you actually look at the statistics and the data, we're in the safest time in history right now. I don't know where that myth comes from. I think it's just from like all the fear mongering in the mainstream media and stuff like that. It's just, it appears as though a lot more terrible things are happening, but it's not the truth. And actually, Sam Harris the other day shared a video on Vimeo it was a visualization of all the deaths that occurred in World War II. And towards the end, it compares it to all of the conflicts that have happened since World War II, and you get a picture in your mind of the fact that we are living in the most peaceful time in history right now. And people don't realize it because all the news is just war and death and, all this stuff. So people, they're just, constantly seeing these things. And so they think that the world is going backwards and things are getting worse, when in actual fact, if you look at the evidence and be reasonable, you'll see that things are getting better.
Well, we have two problems here. First of all, Sam Harris once said the word genocide, so we can't ever trust anything that he says. And second of all, you're in Canada, so you have the metric system, so we have no idea what your statistics mean. So you're done. Oh boy, gosh, I had gum surgery a couple weeks ago, and as I was in recovery, I woke up at 3 a.m. and I retweeted something Sam Harris said and got in a 3-day argument with people about this whole about how he's just, I don't know, it's like Sam Harris is just as bad as ISIS or some kind of weird comparison that came out. I mean, I think you talked, you did it. You did a video recently. It was a video or post about new atheists and about how it's really a label and it really doesn't mean anything, but it's a boogeyman term almost. It's like an Islamophobia. It just,
Yeah.
ah.
I know Sam Harris is, I really don't, I mean, I get it because he identifies as an atheist and he's out there being heard. He's actually being heard, right? Like the more you're heard, the more critics you're going to get. But he's such a gentle, calm, reasonable person. Like I just can't, I don't agree with everything he says. Like, and I don't think anybody should ever agree with everything that anybody says, but he's a very it's even the arguments that he makes against things like things that I don't agree with, he makes very clear, and he's very calm and he's very reasoned about it. And I just don't understand how people can see him as this vicious person. I don't get it. Like, you can understand sometimes with Richard Dawkins, right? Richard Dawkins, and I love the guy. Like, he's
Tone deaf, yeah,
but
some
he
tweets, but
yes, sometimes he's obviously trying to make people notice what he's saying. Like, he's trying to cause a little bit of controversy. And I think that that is a good thing because it makes people think about things that maybe they wouldn't have thought about if he hadn't done that, right? I don't think it's all just about getting attention. But with Sam Harris, I don't get it. Like, he barely ever tweets. He's just, when you watch him, he's extremely calm. I've never seen him get worked up, and he's very reasoned. Every sentence he says is structured in such a way that it's like, well, that makes sense, and I just don't understand how people can have a problem with him. I get some of the other guys, but him, Lawrence Krauss is another one I don't understand people having a problem with. I mean, the guy just seems like the happiest guy on earth. Like, he's just so excited about science and space and all that stuff. So
it's almost this dragging down thing that you get with religion. Like, you're just a religion.
yeah.
And the way that atheism or skepticism gets compared to religion makes religion seem bad. And it's like, you're just as bad as we are. I'm like, well, why are you bad? And why are you following this if it's bad? And the concept of, Richard Harris, I'm messing names up. I'm mixing them up. Richard Harris, oh no, they're like this super villain. Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins types acting like people are following them blindly like they follow religious leaders. And there probably are people who listen to everything these people say and they take them without any skepticism, which happens. But I don't see you must kill this person because they're different. I don't see that coming out.
No.
I don't even see them saying these people need to be in a separate part of society. Like, that's the hardest part to differentiate, is the going after a religion and then going after people. And because there are a lot of really good people who have religious beliefs, and that's just part of who they are. But the beliefs themselves, if you look at them, make you crazy.
Yeah.
This is what your book says. No, it doesn't say to kill apostates. You mean these 12 different places where it says to kill? No, it's if they kill you first, maybe. No.
Well, even with like the cherry pickers, well, they're all cherry pickers, and there's not a single religious person that isn't a cherry picker. But even like people who only believe the good things or whatever, it's still concerning because, it's just, it makes very clear that they'll believe whatever, like that if you try hard enough and you come up with a good enough argument, you can make them believe whatever you want. And that's the scary thing. That leads to stuff like, Heaven's Gate and Jim Jones and people drinking the Kool-Aid and all that stuff. Like, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. If you don't have, I've said this a million times before, but if you don't have that standard of evidence before you believe something and act on it, then you become extremely dangerous, even if you're the most gentle, caring, loving person right now. Like, if you will believe these things, dog again. If you believe these things, it's it's just extremely dangerous. It's like a gateway drug in my mind, you know, like it doesn't always, but it can lead to much more sinister things if you're not careful.
Yeah, there are times when I meet someone who's professes to be religious, I'm almost like, man, I wish I was an insurance salesman. I could probably get you to buy the greatest, most expensive policy possible. You just know it's like, oh, if you're easily convinced about this, then there's probably other stuff that's gonna get you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's just an indication that you don't require actual evidence to believe something. And so anything with a good enough argument, even if there's no evidence for it, we can make you believe. Just scary.
Anything that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, I totally forgot that I'm wearing my. This is actual match your thing. Evolution. I got this from Shane Thrapp at the at ReasonCon. I forgot that this was like, oh yeah, that's so anyway. Yeah. I have to selectively decide when to wear something like this out. Almost.
Yes. Yes, I don't think I would be able to wear something like that out here.
So do you enjoy it when you get, because I've seen that you've actually gotten like response videos to your videos, like having this almost conversation. And at first when I saw that, I thought it was a Christian, but it actually sounded like it was another skeptic. Is that fun to have that kind of ongoing conversation?
I like to my problem is always that I don't have a whole lot of time to do videos because it's such a undertaking, you know, like you gotta film it, and you know, I'm a girl, so I have to look good. So you gotta get ready, you gotta film it, you gotta edit it, and it's just, and then something always goes wrong, right? Like your computer fails, you have to go to a different one. And it's just it's such an undertaking, so I don't have a whole lot of time to do videos. I wish I did because I absolutely love doing videos. I love the response that I get from videos. It seems to be, a lot more vocal and more like a conversation than it is with my blog posts. But yeah, I don't seem to have a whole lot of time. But yeah, to answer your question, if I had more time, I would totally love to get deep down into like Bionic Dance. I love watching her videos because she goes back and forth with Christians, right? Like I would love to be able to do something like that, but it would just, I mean, all that editing, I would take forever.
Yeah, I think I've seen it where it's like a Christian atheist. They kind of go back and forth and talk about certain issues, and it does get some crossover as well because you don't want to always. I'm just talking to the people who already agree with me, so it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I also struggle with the videos because everybody's already said everything already, you know? Like if you go to any atheist's videos or YouTube channel, you'll see like all the same topics. And of course everybody gives their own, personal touch to it and they give their own personality and all that stuff, but I mean, we do tend to talk about a lot of the same things, and I'm guilty of that myself, but it's just like I'm struggling to find something that's different, you know? And I have been since I started doing the videos. I tried to do that strange religion thing for a little while, but I don't know. It wasn't getting the same response as my other videos, so I kind of left that behind. But there is something that I'm trying to work on right now, and that is we want to cover some coming out stories as an atheist. Me and my husband actually wanted to do this, to cover some coming out stories on video and actually go and interview these people in person. But that's going to require funding, and what we wanted to do was collect the stories first to see if we had some good enough ones that would, could take up a whole video and keep people's attention from people who are actually willing to share. We want to just collect those stories and then see if it's actually worthwhile, but that's something we want to do.
I think that'd be a worthwhile project. Now let me do my second short read here, just a little break up the show, and we'll get right back to this subject. So Do me a big favor and come see me in person at the Atheist Alliance of America annual conference in Atlanta, October 15th through 18th. I'll have details in the show notes. This conference will make ReasonCon seem like a backyard barbecue. In comparison, lots of big speakers are going to be in town. And I'm just excited because for some reason, as long as I've been kind of acknowledged as an atheist, I'm like, why haven't there been conferences in Atlanta? I'm in a big city and it almost never happens. And now there's one. So I'm excited that I'll actually be a part of it. That was one of the odd things of going to the conference in North Carolina is I actually met people who lived in Atlanta who I'd never met before while I was in Atlanta. So at least now I got a few more local people, we're similar. Anyway, hi.
Hi.
Do you do that to continue what you were talking about just a minute ago before I so rudely interrupted you? You like to do this as part of your blog, have people tell their stories. When did you decide to get that going? And is this an ongoing, something you enjoy doing and having as part of your blog?
Oh yeah, I love that part. I think that like when I started my blog, one of the things that was really important to me was to make it not just about me, because I've been an atheist my whole life. There's not a whole lot I can say about it. Like it's just it's more, I wanted it to be more about people who experience some kind of adversity because of their atheism, and I can't say that I ever have. So these stories, they started probably about a month after I started my blog, and I have like 150 in queue waiting to be posted. So some of them are really, really incredibly written, and some of them are shocking, and some of them are really sad, and some of them are really inspiring, and it's just such an incredible subject to talk about, because for me it's strange, right? Like, I never had to come out. I didn't even realize people believed in God till I was like 7. But yeah, I love that part of it because that's something that I personally can't cover. I can't cover coming out because I don't know what it's like.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there. And that's something that I'll probably never get enough of is hearing these people's stories. Especially, I mean, it's not even different parts of the world. You're talking about Nigeria earlier, like people who are from Wyoming or from, Arizona or different parts of the South. Everybody has a different story to tell, and that's what's the most interesting to me. I mean, you mentioned the whole everything's been said before. Man, I listen to a ton of podcasts and they do tread the same ground, but I think it's like it needs to be said repeatedly. And as you've mentioned in a blog post of your own, people still can't answer basic questions about what atheism is. And maybe it's what people want it to be, but just the more people who kind of say, this is it, this is what it is, maybe that'll help.
Yeah, it's important to cover that stuff. I even though we've said it a million times before, I think that we still need to keep saying it, for sure. But I think that we need to, I think like the number one thing that's kind of missing in the atheists in the world of out and open and vocal atheists is just being a little bit more human, and a little bit less debatey and, like logical. We need to debate, and we need to say these things, and we need to say, this is what atheism is, and we need to continue to say those things so it starts to sink into people's minds. There's no doubt about it. But I think we also need to talk about like who we are, because that's the biggest issue that people have with atheists. Like there was that poll that came out that said that atheists were the most feared group in America. Well, they obviously don't understand, and just saying no, we're not evil isn't going to help. You have to, demonstrate it. You have to tell stories about your life and talk about who you are as a person without any relationship to the fact that you don't believe in God. You know, like you have to be a human being in order for people to relate to you and see you as not a threat. And that's one of the reasons why I write the series on my blog called Atheist Life Hacks, which is, they're not hacks at all. They're just like funny, most of the time funny stories from my life. And it just, the whole purpose of that is to cut me down a peg so I don't sound like I'm just like this debating machine, and you know, this person that's like saying just only logical things and in a robotic voice. You know, like I want to be seen as a human being with a heart and that cares about other people. And I think the more we portray ourselves that way, the less people are going to be afraid of us. The less, you know, that poll will be different next time. It won't say that atheists are the most feared group in America. But yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing that's missing. And Hemant Mehta actually posted a video about that a little while back, about how storytelling is lacking in the atheist community. It's all about, like, all our blog posts are about arguing the evidence for God or talking about logical fallacies and all of this stuff, but nobody's talking about themselves. And I think there needs to be more of that, because through my interactions with a lot of atheists online, there are a lot of incredible people out there and with incredible stories to tell. And I just, if I could say anything to everybody that's an atheist out there right now, just tell your story, get out there and start talking about who you are as a person, as opposed to arguing all the time with other people.
Oh, and tell your story to me. That's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to do here. And you also, I like that you and Hemant are, best buds, which is awesome. I think that's, see, that your point is something that Seth Andrews, Thinking Atheist, mentions, is how there is that lack of storytelling aspect to it. And I recall during that dumb 3-day debate I had that it was all about trying to win. It wasn't trying, like, I would actually, at the end, there was, I think, a Muslim from somewhere else in the world who wasn't from America. That was the person I was like, I want to know what your story is. But all he wanted to do is say, you're a new atheist and that's bad and you're horrible and, it's your fault that the U.S. invaded Iraq and that kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I want to know about you. I want to know what your story is. Like, where do you live? Like, what do you believe? And there's a story in there. That's why I think everybody, you talk about 30,000 different versions of Christianity. I think there are as many versions as there are people who are Christians, just because each person is unique. Mm-hmm. You can say you all believe the same thing, but I guarantee you list 500 things, no one's going to agree on them all. It's just not going to happen if you really think about it. So we got to be human beings, people.
I have invited so many religious people to guest blog on my blog, and none of them will take it up. And it's so depressing to me, because I think that it's just as relevant to atheism and this shift in religious opinions. It's just as relevant to understand them as well. And none of them will take me up on it, though. And I mean, I always warn them. If they're interested, I always warn them and say, there will be people that are not going to be nice about this. And I think that kind of scares them away. But I wish that I could find some religious people who would guest post, because those are the things that start the conversations. Like, that's what I'm really interested in, is starting conversations and having people talk. Like, I love Twitter so much, and I think you can tell, but I love it because it's just so perfect for a great conversation. I think the 140 characters lends itself to that, because it allows a true back and forth, but I don't know, nobody will take me up on it. So
I don't know why it is, but it seems like American atheists prefer Facebook, and it's international people who like Twitter better. And I have been on Twitter forever. I'm only on Facebook because of some atheist groups I'm in where that's the only place where people will post.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've been doing Twitter so long, I just seem to prefer it. But there's so many people I'm like, I'm really close friends, but I don't even know if you have a Twitter account or you never check it. And
Yeah.
So you're one of the few, like you and like Nancy Drew, and of course, well, Paul gets on there from time to time. But it is the opportunity to follow people who live in different parts of the world and just chat and get to know them, because
Yeah.
find the things, because if you're a religious person, maybe we don't have this whole God thing squarely set up, but I am sure there's stuff we agree on.
Yeah.
We probably all want to make the world a better place, unless you are trying to bring on the end times, which I don't think there are many. I mean, you can only make so many babies. You get kind of tired of that, you know. It's just the
Yeah.
same old slow cooking. You know, it's the same old, same old.
Yeah, I think I like Twitter better because it's like like I said earlier, I don't really have a whole lot of time to focus on this. So Twitter, like I'm in line at the grocery store and I can do it. And I'm, picking up my son and he's playing at school on the playground. I can handle it. Whereas with Facebook, the Facebook app does my head in on my phone, and I have a brand new phone, and it still is just one of the most poorly written pieces of software ever. Um, I deleted it because I couldn't handle it. And then there's on even when you log in on the web, it's extremely RAM heavy. It slows everything down, and I have a brand new computer as well, and it's just like I hate Facebook. I can't express. And all the ads on Facebook, and the fact that when you post something on Facebook, all your followers don't see it, like you have to pay for all your followers to see it. Um, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah,
Not
there
worth
was
the time.
like I posted something. It's like, do you want to send this to friends or acquaintances? And I was like, I thought everybody was a friend or they weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, Twitter, I like the aspect of you can follow somebody and they don't have to follow you back. It seems like
Yeah.
with Facebook, you have to have this mutual thing. And there might be people you just want to kind of follow and maybe eventually be friends with, or maybe not, just to kind of keep track. Occasionally it's hard to, you're like, oh, I want to keep track of some of these religious people, the Ken Hams of the world. So some of your favorites, right?
Yeah, the other cool thing about Twitter too is that you can actually interact. Like I've had I believe Sam Harris at one point answered one of my questions. I've talked to Roseanne Barr. Like I've talked to um it wasn't me talking to him, but Penn Jillette had my at mention in a tweet a couple of times, and like like you feel like they're more accessible and you can actually reach out, especially with like the Free Mubarak thing, right? Like that really helped us. The fact that you can just reach out to somebody like Richard Dawkins and he sees what you say. There's no filter. You don't have to pay to make him be able to see that, and you don't have to be mutual friends or anything like that. Like he still saw it. He retweeted it. I've talked to Lawrence Krauss. I've emailed back and forth with Lawrence Krauss about a book and Peter Boghossian, and and that's all through Twitter, because Twitter is just not limiting in that way, and I that stuff helped immensely with Free Mubarak, and in the future there will probably be more campaigns that are similar. Free Rafe is one of them, and I mean you see Dawkins tweeting about that, you see Krauss tweeting about that all the time. So, I mean, that's why I prefer Twitter. It's just so much easier to actually get something going on there.
Plus, it's a very supportive community, and it's still relatively small. There are a few quote unquote superstars, but most people who are doing blogs or podcasts or YouTube shows aren't making a living off it. Maybe it's a second income. But for most people, it's just a passion, and then they're like, oh, more people want to talk about what I want. Okay, this is fun. So yeah, it's always fun to kind of interact, especially with people you haven't interacted with before. You're, oh, there's all these people I had never heard from before, and I would never have known them if it weren't for this goofy app that I think pretty much anybody who first heard of Twitter was like, what's the point? And there's still people you try to explain it to, and you're like,
Yeah.
either you get it or you don't. I mean, the point is, I guess a lot of these famous internet apps, social networks, the simplicity helps.
Yeah, I've been on Twitter. I've been on the internet since before anybody on my street had the internet or even heard of it. I am one of those nerds that's just like been here. I've been connected for longer than most people have ever even knew it was possible. And when Twitter first came out, I was one of the first people on there, and it was a different account. I don't know where that account went, but um, the account that I'm using right now, I actually changed from I changed the name from an old account that used to be an activism account for ending the death penalty, and during that time, President Obama followed me, so he still follows Godless Mom.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's hard to top that. You drop the mic, but mics are expensive, so don't do that. Don't drop it. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. So before we call it quits, I want you to know, do you have a question for me? I've been asking you questions the whole time.
Sorry, what was that?
So do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I was wondering because I don't really know much about you. Did you were an atheist your whole life too?
I think I didn't really know what it was until probably college age.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm in a weird circumstance because my family never was religious, but I had this kind of intense hospitalization in 2001, and my parents kind of went back to Catholicism after that. Like they're in a church, although it's a kind of very liberal version, and it's a little odd. I recently kind of came out, but it was like okay, it was nothing to it, but there really wasn't any upbringing for me. So coming down here and seeing all the churches, I think it's just there was some science fiction movie where if you put on the certain glasses, you would see the aliens. Like it's like now I put on the glasses and now I see all the churches and go, what is this all about? Because
Yeah, that's
there
exactly
are
how I
so many in this
experienced.
town. It is crazy.
Yeah.
I think we have
Yeah,
enough.
that's exactly like it was for me. It was like all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, like it's all around me, you know? It's weird.
Mhm. Well, we'll see if we can get a little more info going in because next week I'm going to interview Andrew Garber of Atheist Roundtable, and I'm going to be on his show on Sunday. So we're going to do a little back and forth, little tennis match. So, Godless Mom, tell everybody, how do they find you? How do they support your work? And what about that artwork of yours?
Well, I do paintings of, anybody you want really, if you have pictures. And you can find them on my website at godlessmom.com. And the paintings themselves are under the store menu. And you can follow me on Twitter at godless_mom. And if you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/godlessmom.
Support. Is that just one word, Godless Mom?
Yeah.
Okay. Just because it's all about the spelling. I picked
Yeah.
a word that's hard for people to spell, which is probably going to cost me down the road.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Courtney, Mrs. Mom, for being on the show. So for everybody listening / watching, if you checked out my first live read, you'll know how to reach out and find me. If you want to support this show with actual money, you can go to patreon.com/Zachrilege. Can do per episode, can do per month, all that good stuff. So in closing, I'm still proud of the atheist movement. Even 1 hour later, it was recently announced that Saudi blogger Rev Badawi's sentence of 1,000 lashes, 10 years in prison, and a hefty fine were upheld. Sometimes we follow these stories and we don't follow them to the conclusion. So I'm glad that atheists are showing their disdain of the Saudi regime again. Not that that's hard to do, but there doesn't seem to be as much mainstream coverage. But I like the fact that people are still sticking with this all the way through because it's just horrific that this is happening to a human being on the planet. Blasphemy laws are dumb. If you don't believe in a religion, I'm sorry, you can't go to their laws. It's just kind of silly. You really can't say anything bad about someone's God if you don't believe in it. It's basic, but we're going to do what we can for justice because we have it, at least in North America, better than in a lot of places in the world. So thanks again, Godless Mom. Follow her. And I will have, as I mentioned, Andrew Garber of Atheist Roundtable on next Tuesday. So that show probably will come out next Wednesday. And I'll be sitting at that roundtable very late on Sunday night. He's one of those late night people. We need to have the late night atheists versus the early day atheists, because I've gone 3 weeks in a row with daytime interviews, and now I gotta actually stay up past my bedtime. So thanks again for being on the show. It was a lot of fun, and just wanted to say in conclusion for everybody, stay skeptical.